Good evening. Seeing the title, you might have assumed this was just another ordinary success story. Maybe you thought another award in Canada, another ribbon-cutting ceremony. But the story behind the scenes is nothing like that. Today, we are about to reveal a truth that has fundamentally shaken North America's economic balance of the last 50 years. Why has Washington suddenly become uneasy? Why are policymakers in the White House wearing deep lines of concern on their foreheads? The reason isn't a trophy. The reason is power, influence, and the collapse of a long-standing dominance. For decades, there was an unwritten rule. In North America, the final word in manufacturing, especially automotive, belongs to the United States. Everyone else was expected to simply support that dominance. But that belief has now shattered, and it happened right in front of the world. The official news. Toyota's Canadian operations have once again won a world-class award, but this is no ordinary recognition. The Cambridge plant in Ontario is now the most awarded automotive manufacturing facility in world history. They have surpassed not only America, but even Japan itself. Why this is a warning sign for the US. The automotive industry isn't just about building cars. It represents a region's industrial strategy, labor strength, and political leverage. For decades, it was assumed that America would remain the center of this universe, while Canada would stay in its shadow. But Toyota has proven something extraordinary. In the end, success isn't about size or muscle. Success is about investment, discipline, and long-term vision. While Washington was busy with tariff wars and political blame games, Canada quietly built a highly skilled workforce, a precise, reliable production ecosystem. The real source of panic. Now the question is, why are US policymakers alarmed? Because when global automakers decide where to invest their next billions, they won't listen to political speeches. They will look at data. They will look at which plant has delivered world-class quality for years without disruption. And Canada now stands proudly with that undeniable proof. They have made one thing clear. If you want to build world-class products in North America, the address is no longer Detroit. The address is now Ontario. We now stand before a truth that American politicians have kept hidden from ordinary people for decades. For years, voters were told that raising tariffs would magically bring factories back. They were told that other countries were cheating and stealing American jobs. But Toyota's world-beating success in Ontario, Canada, has shattered that carefully scripted narrative. Why is Washington silent about this extraordinary achievement? Why is there no congratulations, no official acknowledgement? Because this success forces a deeply uncomfortable question onto the table. Where was the real mistake? Trade or mindset? American policymakers convinced the public that the problem was trade. But when Canadian workers, within the same continental framework, built the best cars on the planet, it became clear. The problem was never trade. The problem was priorities. American workers were told that other countries were undercutting them with cheap labor, but Toyota's story says something radically different. It shows us, unmistakably, when you treat workers as a cost, quality collapses. When you treat workers as an asset, they conquer the world. Quality is not determined by how many flags hang at the factory gate. It is determined by how much you value the people who walk through that gate every morning. Canada's trump card, when performance becomes leverage. Now let's get to the real point of concern. This news has arrived at a time when behind-the-scenes tug-of-war continues over the future of North America's trade agreement. Washington has always tried to maintain dominance through sheer force, tariffs, threats, and political pressure. But Canada now possesses a form of leverage that no sanction can break. Reputation and performance. Canada no longer sits at the negotiating table as a junior partner. It sits there as the place where excellence is produced.
Politicians can say whatever they want on television, but capital always follows returns, not emotional speeches. You cannot scare investment into coming back if your system can't retain it. Toyota has proven a simple truth. You cannot tariff your way out of excellence. And that is why Washington is stunned. They know that Canada's success has written the final chapter of their long-crafted political narrative.
The media will tell you this is a win or loss battle between Canada and America, but they are avoiding the real truth. This is not a scoreboard of two countries competing. This is the story of a massive institutional collapse. Toyota's achievement proves one thing clearly. Industrial success does not run on empty slogans. It runs on proper training, long-term planning, and a resilient supply chain. When workers become chess pieces, a silent tragedy. Look at America's manufacturing towns. Factories are opened with loud celebrations, only to be quietly automated or outsourced later. Workers are told, be patient, be grateful. But when a company loses money, workers are blamed. And when profits surge, only executives receive bonuses. Canada did not follow this path. They showed that if you prioritize quality, you must invest in the skill of your workforce. And that skill comes from good wages, job security, and respect. Canadian workers are world-class today because their system never treated them as a cost. It treated them as assets. Capital versus performance, the final act. Why is Washington uneasy today? Because all their economic policies of the last few decades are now on trial. Why were corporations given tax breaks when they weren't investing? Why were workers' rights stripped away in the name of flexibility? Why was public money handed to large companies with no conditions attached? We were told that in the era of globalization, there was no alternative. But Canada's auto sector has proven there was always an alternative. America did not fall behind in the automotive industry because workers forgot how to build cars. They fell behind because corporate leadership valued finance, short-term profit, more than the industry itself. We've spent all this time looking at why Washington is uncomfortable. Now let's look at how deep that discomfort really goes. Why did America fall behind? The answer isn't hidden in a laboratory. It's tucked away behind the balance sheets of giant corporate offices. In the United States, industrial policy is no longer about production. It has become a game of the stock market and share prices. And when a company only cares about this quarter's profits, what happens? Training becomes an unnecessary expense. Maintenance becomes optional. Experienced workers are treated as disposable parts, easy to replace with something cheaper. The result? Quality collapses, and then companies spend hundreds of millions recalling cars from the market to fix problems that should never have existed. Canada's different path, when stability becomes power. This is where Canada chose a very different route. They understood that manufacturing is not a temporary game. The Canadian government treated the auto sector as a strategic pillar. Unions survived, training systems remained active, and above all, stability. When a worker knows he will still have his job next year, he invests in improving his skills. When a manager knows success depends not on cutting costs, but on long-term performance, he invests in the system itself. This is how excellence is built year after year. It isn't a miracle, it's the outcome of a carefully designed structure. Media silence and the real tragedy. Why isn't the media celebrating this story? Because pointing out systemic flaws is far harder than selling tariff wars or nationalist excitement. It's easier to blame foreign competitors than to admit that domestic policies have stripped workers of power while filling the pockets of a select few. America's manufacturing towns collapsed not because production failed, but because extraction became the rule. Job losses, stagnant wages, unsafe workplaces, none of these were accidents. They were the result of bad decisions. When excellence becomes its own trump card.
Here's the greatest irony of all. The integrated North American system that was originally designed to keep America at the top, that very system has now allowed Canada to become the benchmark for manufacturing excellence. Canada didn't threaten anyone. They broke no rules. They simply focused on building great products. And that is a direct blow to the political economy that believed excellence could be outsourced or forced through pressure. The real question today isn't whether Canada deserved this recognition. The real question is America ready to learn the lesson that this undeniable truth is offering?
We are now at the final stretch of our discussion. But this is exactly where the most important question lies. Will the world learn the right lesson from Canada's achievements, or will it take the wrong, tempting path? The wrong path is seductive, protectionism without investment, pressure without planning, and blame without reform. These approaches offer short-term satisfaction, but never long-term stability. Today, we must confront an uncomfortable truth. When we know how to build a world-class production system and still fail to build it, then we must admit, this economic system was never designed for ordinary people. It was built to serve the interests of a powerful few. When instability becomes a business strategy. On screen in large letters, insecurity is a feature, not a bug. Host. Strip away the comforting myths. We must accept that the failures we call inevitable are actually extremely profitable for someone. A worker terrified of layoffs or factory closures is easy to control. A community dependent on a single employer is easy to pressure. And a government afraid of capital flight is the easiest of all to manipulate. The story of Canada's auto industry breaks this toxic cycle. They showed what happens when unions are treated not as enemies, but as partners, when skill is treated not as a personal cost, but as a national asset. This isn't a revolutionary idea, it's common sense that we lost in the frenzy for short-term profit. The real reason Washington is silent. Background: a dimming view of a building in Washington, D.C. Host: why is Washington silent today? Because acknowledging Canada's success would mean admitting something devastating. America's decline was not destiny. It was the result of bad decisions. If they speak up now, ordinary people will ask, why weren't those good decisions made for America? Whose interests were served by sacrificing skill for cost-cutting? Why was lowering expenses treated as more important than building excellence? When cost-cutting becomes more important than greatness, the owners win, but workers lose, society loses, and national capacity collapses. We've now reached a stage in this discussion where all excuses have run out. Canada's success has proven that there's no point blaming globalization or technology. The rules are the same, the market is the same, even the technology is the same. Only the outcomes differ. And that difference proves one thing: decline is not destiny. It is the result of decisions, bad decisions. The end of excuses when truth stands in front of you. When one part of an integrated system performs dramatically better than the rest, you can no longer blame abstract forces. You can't blame globalization, the rules are identical. You can't blame technology, the machines are the same. You can't even blame the workers, the same company hires them in both countries. Only three things remain: governance, investment, and respect for labor. The two faces of capitalism: production versus extraction. This story isn't just about Toyota or Canada. It is a raw reflection of the kind of capitalism we have built, a capitalism that rewards extraction, not production. A system that treats workers as mere inputs ultimately destroys its own capabilities, and when quality collapses, the blame is thrown right back onto those same workers.
Canada's plants are showing us unmistakably that a different path is not only possible, it is the most competitive path in today's market. Why this truth matters for all of us. Maybe you don't work in the auto industry, but this logic applies everywhere. Healthcare, education, logistics, you name it. Where short-term profit is the priority, quality collapses. Where long-term value matters, quality rises and spreads. The silence of American political leaders is really a confession of uncertainty, because Canada's success has raised questions they can no longer control. Why does a job mean stability in one country and insecurity in another? Why does one country invest in skills while another perfects the art of layoffs? Conclusion: the time for change is now. These aren't radical questions, they're deeply reasonable ones. Policymakers will likely try to distract the public again with a new trade dispute or a surge of nationalist drama, but ordinary working people pay the price every single day. The time has come to look in the mirror. Will we remain trapped in a system engineered to fail us, or will we learn from a model that not only honors excellence but makes it sustainable? This is Maroof Hassan, reporting directly from News Related TV. Good night.